So, in my humble opinion, I genuinely believe wholeheartedly that there is no such thing as quote unquote femcels, quote unquote female loners, female outcasts, female rejects, women who are not wanted in society. In my humble opinion, and I know I might be ruffling a few feathers by saying that, but I genuinely don't believe they exist. Um, in my humble opinion, I think every woman on the planet, regardless of her looks or a disability or economic situation, educational situation, whether they're a middle school dropout or never even went to school, can't even read or write. I don't believe that any of those women are actually outcasts and losers and femcels. Um, when people talk about being a cell or being involuntarily celibate, you know, it's not a joke, you know. For a lot of men, being involuntarily celibate, being a social reject and a social outcast and a loser, it's a big part of their life because they had no control over it, right? And when women talk about how they're a femcel or they're a loser, usually it's coming from a place of rebellion. Usually it's coming from a place of them simply not wanting to follow any rules, any boundaries, any sort of structure. And that's not the situation for men, for most men. You really think most guys out there who are inkies would be are like following the rules away from being slayers? No. For most men who are inkies, there's absolutely nothing they can do to change their situation. They were born that way and they're going to die that way. And they have to be okay with it and they have to suck it up. But I don't believe that is a situation that exists for women. I think, if there's a woman out there who claims to be a social outcast, who claims to be a loser, that's a woman who is probably just rejecting every good thing that comes into her life. When a woman claims that she's a femcel and can't get any women, any dates, or can't get any men, or can't get a man to take her serious, what she really means is she can't get Giga Chad to take her seriously and marry her. She'll get dug out by Giga Chad, but she'll label herself a femcel for not being marriage material for Giga Chad. You see, women, they always aim for the top. It's an evolutionary trait. You can't get mad at them for them. That's just how nature took its course. And that's why men, back in the day, they could get away with being unattractive by simply reaching the top because women were looking for the top financial men. But now that we live in a world where men and women have the same rights, I think that's even outdated. Now that we live in a world where women have more rights than men, where women have more options economically than men, career wise, even on YouTube, for freak's sakes, man. You'll go on YouTube and every category is dominated by women. And that's why you'll see a lot of these women who talk about how they're femcels and they're female losers and female rejects. The reason you even get to see them is because the algorithm pushes them. The algorithm, they see a female face, the AI scans and sees feminine features and just, push. That's what they do. And that's why there's so many men out there who they never make it on YouTube, man. They never even see their first $100 threshold payment, because they never even make it to 1,000 subs because there's nothing there for them. There's no freebies, right? So, you'll see these women who talk about how they're femcels and they're female losers and they're female outcasts, and to me that's just a whole load of horse shit. I don't believe that any woman out there, regardless if she's uh, high calorie or low calorie, I don't think that any of that matters. Face doesn't even matter for women. Most women, all they got to do is throw on a sundress and they have 1,000,001 followers of all sorts of creeds chasing them. You have rich dudes, broke dudes, white men, Indian men, black men chasing them. And that's why, to me, it's very laughable and honestly a little bit annoying when women claim that they're female losers and femcels, because there are men out there who are genuinely living that life, man. There are men out there who have put their best foot forward in every aspect of their life, and they were never even able to get a hug. Some of them can't even have never even held a woman's hand, let alone get a kiss and partake in coitus and be in a relationship. I'm a man that I've never had a relationship. I'm not going to sit here and say that I've never had coitus. I've been able to achieve coitus in the past, not with the best looking women. Honestly, if, from my humble saying and my humble point of view, they were women that got lucky, to get a little bit of my rod, right? Because in my opinion, I'm probably higher SMV than them. But we live in a world that, the dating market and all of that is so skewed that, I would go as far to say that a man who's a 6 out of 10, the average 6 out of 10 man is willing to take a 1 out of 10 or a 2 out of 10 woman. And you'll see women who are completely normal looking women. You could even go as far to say that they're pretty cute. And they'll talk about, I'm a femcel, I'm a social reject, I'm a loser, I messed up, I'm 28 years old and I'm living with my mom. It's like, you're a woman. That no man out there gives a damn whether a woman is living with her mother. On the contrary, if you tell a man that you're 28 years old and you live with your mom as a woman, most guys are going to get excited. Most guys are going to view that as a positive. Most guys are going to be like, you know what? This is my gal. This is the girl I want. She's perfect. You can't say that about a man. If you're a guy that's 28 years old and you tell a woman or you tell another man, hey man, I live with my mom, they're going to think you're a loser. They're going to write you off. They're going to hate you. They're going to detest you. They're going to sneak diss you. Oh man, you used to live with your mom. You used to live with your dad. That's not the same for women. And it's always funny to me when I see women, they talk about, I'm 28 years old and I live with my mom. I'm a loser. It's like, that doesn't apply to you, mama. That never has and that never will apply to you. But I get it. Sometimes, movies like Taxi Driver and all this kind of like this huge explosion of the B pill content and the inkwell content and the undesired man content and the social reject content. I get it. It's cool. It's got this like cool aesthetic to it. Like, oh man, I'm down and out. They think of like, some, Ryan Gosling in that one, meme that they always post where he's like laying on the snow. They think that's what it's like to be an inkwell. They think that's what it's like to be a social reject. They think that just because Chad didn't text them back in 1.2 milliseconds that they're an inky. Try going 20 years. Try going your whole life. Try going from the moment you were born until the minute you're put in the coffin, going without. And that's the case for a lot of men, right? But some men, they're better than others at shutting up, and they don't care to be vocal like myself and a lot of other guys here. But, when I hear a woman say that she's a femcel, it's ridiculous to me. It's ridiculous. It's absurd. It's illogical and irrational to think that a woman could be an inky. It's insane to think that a woman is going to be perceived as a loser because she doesn't have a career by 30. Women were never meant to have quote unquote careers. Women have been given and bestowed with a responsibility much higher and much more beautiful than going and rotting away in a corporate job or going and rotting away in a warehouse. That's a fate for men. Men are the expendables. Men are the ones who we are the ones who rot away in the warehouses. And if we don't do it, we're viewed as lazy, and we're viewed as fruitcakes. And we got soft hands, brother. Why do you think you have that meme? And why do you think they ended off with brother? No, you'll never see a meme that says you got soft hands, sister, because a woman having soft hands and being unworked it's a bonus. What man or what homosexual female is going to want a woman who's been worked to the bone? No one. From birth, your father doesn't want you to work to the bone. From birth, your father is going to do everything he can to protect you from the harsh conditions and the harsh realities of life. And even your mother will. But they won't do that for the men. They won't do that for their sons. On the contrary, if you're a son, they're going to wake you up when you're 8 years old, and they're going to tell you to put on your boots so you could go work with your dad at the blue collar job site. That's what happened to me. My dad would take me to work when I was a young kid, and he told me, oh, you got to learn the value of money. You got to learn the value of hard work. You're a man, right? So when I hear women talk about that they're losers because they don't have a thriving career by 30, it's insane, because they want to believe that. They want to believe that they're losers. They want to believe that because they think it's cool. Most guys, I guarantee you that 99.9999999% of men who are considered losers, who are considered outcasts and rejects and inkies and undesired men, they don't want to live that life. But they got forced into that life. That was a life that was bestowed upon them by the higher powers, and they would do anything to shake off that life. I would do anything to shake off that life. I really wish I was a LARPer. I really wish I was one of those guys that has a phone book full of women, but I don't get Stacy, so I'm an inky. But unfortunately, I'm not. And that's the logic that a lot of women carry themselves around, that if they don't get that one guy they're obsessed with, they're a femcel, and they think that if a high-tier normie or a mid-tier normie approaches them, then they're a reject. And it's utterly insane and utterly hilarious how society will continue the simps, because most of these channels and most of these women who gain some sort of notoriety or clout by claiming to be losers and femcels and rejected women and stuff, the reason they even get to live that little fantasy that they have is because of men simps. Men who are willing to say, if a woman was to tell a simp that the sky is the color of a pizza, guys will agree. Like, oh yeah, I see it. Oh, pepperoni. Oh, cheese. Oh, crust. They'll agree because they're simps and they're trying their best to gain favor with this woman, which will hopefully lead to them having a relationship and, sooner than later, achieving coitus. So when women talk about, oh, I'm a femcel, and people laugh at it, it's because, guess what? It's a bunch of men trying to get at them. So that, that pretty much contradicts what you're saying. Like every guy is laughing at your little joke saying you're a femcel because they want to be the ones who take that badge of celibacy from you, involuntary celibacy. So, women always have options. Like I said, even the ones that you would look at them and be like, how the hell are you alive. Even those women, they have more options than you can even comprehend. You see, when you compare some of these women who claim to be inkies, and they claim to be female losers and rejects, and you compare them to real losers, you compare them to real inkies, you compare them to men who genuinely lived that life, such as Barack McRae, Renegade Number One, all these type of men who fell and lost their life in their personal war against inkwelldom, in their own personal war against social rejection and social ostracization. Those are men. When you compare those men to a lot of these women who claim to be femcels and social rejects, it's honestly, it's laughable, because these are guys who genuinely, there was nothing they could do. I mean, you could look at Barack McRae, and in my humble opinion, he wasn't even a bad looking dude. He had a good hairline, he had a decent face, but he just had the mark of the black pill, and he was a genuine inky, and there was nothing he was gonna do. He was a genuine social reject, and when women try to claim that, it's almost no different than when you have that kid who grew up in a two-parent household in a multi-million-dollar home with a father with a $250,000 salary and a loving mother who made him lunch every day, and they're thumping their chest, hanging out with the hood dudes, talking about I made it out the mud. It's no different than that. But because it's women, no one will ever call them out, because women, this world is pretty much been engineered and rewired and set up to where women, they run everything. Women, why do you think you'll see the biggest subscribed channels in any category on YouTube or Instagram or TikTok or any of these platforms? It's women, like, yeah, you'll have some guys who they pull numbers, but that's through grit, that's through sheer determination, that's through sheer knowledge and obsession with the passion, with that subject. Meanwhile, a woman, all she has to do is look real cute and talk about a certain subject, and all of a sudden she's the most subscribed. So to me, it's ridiculous when I hear women talk about that they're losers, because how are you a loser? Chad doesn't text you back in a split second. You're not being inundated with DMs and cash apps from Chad Rodriguez. So you're an inky. You're a social reject because someone didn't want to pay $500 to take a look at your creation, whether it be art or a video or some silly little project that you have that is in all realities pretty foolish, but you're able to continue with it because you're a woman, and whatever you do is just gonna gain clout. That's why you'll see guys that they upload videos for 10 years and they get 5 views, because no one has anything. That man has nothing of value to give his viewer. No eye candy, no ear candy, none of that. Why do you think, you'll go see these ASMR channels, nothing but women? Who the hell wants to listen to me? Imagine yourself. Ding. Who the hell wants to listen to me? No one wants to listen to my ASMR. Hell nah. They're like, get this weirdo out of here. Right? But it's just, it'll always be funny to me. It'll always be funny to me when women claim to be femcels and inkies and social rejects, because it's so not true. It's so made up. It's so fabricated. It's laughable, because most of these women, like I say, their subscribers, that every one of their subscribers giving them love and support and patting them on the back. They just climb and skyrocket and balloon in YouTube. They just gain a bunch of subscribers and they maintain them, and they're able to just collect super chats and memberships, and because guess what? All these are people who are trying to impress them to hopefully one day be their partner. So that just pretty much contradicts this whole idea that you're a femcel, because your entire community is just nothing but men who want to be with you. But most of the time, those guys are not that attractive, and they're below your looks requirements. So you're not a femcel. You're just a woman with high standards. You're just a woman who wants what she wants, and she's not going to go any lower because you can. That's why you'll see so many guys that they level up and they're powerful men, and they have to get with a woman who's far below them in looks, far below them in social status. Why? That doesn't matter for women. Cristiano Ronaldo married some freaking pole dancer. And, if she gets divorced from him, she's going to get like 100 something a week, 100 something thousand a week. It's like, come on. This whole, I can't stand when I see that. When women claim that society hates them because they're low level and low tier, they don't. Why do you want that? Why do you want to feel our pain? This is not a game. This is not a game. This social isolation stuff, this being a social reject, this being an involuntarily celibate individual, it's not a game. It's not an aesthetic. It's not, people think, some people think that because they play the song Freaks behind, or they play, they listen to these TikToks, that they're an inky. You're not. Being an inky it's a real life conundrum. It's a real life struggle for a lot of men. And when women go around claiming that they're inkies, it's just laughing. It's laughing at them. It's laughing at them, man. And it's honestly it's very annoying. And more than anything, it's very demoralizing when you see that, because it's like your struggle and your hardships, they're being minimized by these individuals, because they think that because someone didn't want to pay $700 for a piece of their, I don't know, a piece of them, something they created, that they're inkies, or that they're social rejects because the video didn't get 100,000 views. Meanwhile, you got guys out here uploading for 10, 20 years straight, and they're sitting at 50 views, and they're still putting their best foot forward, optimistic about life. And you got women who, just because they don't get $100 in super chats, that, they're rejects. And it's so sad. It's so disheartening, just because they don't get Jeremy Meeks, they think, oh, I'm an inky. Meanwhile, most guys out there would take any woman. They really would. Most guys out there, myself included, we would take most women. Any woman who was just genuine and sincere and about us, we would take her, and we would treat her like a queen, and we would do anything we can to make her life better. But when a woman doesn't get the highest ranking man, all of a sudden she's an inky, it's a joke. It's a joke. It's honestly, sometimes it does get a little angering, infuriating, just seeing how easy people have it, and they still claim to be a part of this isolated and rejected group of people. Some individuals will go 1 year, they'll be depressed for 1 year, and all of a sudden, they're rejects. All of a sudden, society hates them. And like I said earlier, try going your whole life. You have that, what's his name? Rest in peace. The Cobra guy. If you actually watch the last video, or the video his father posted directly after his passing, he pretty much said that when he turned 3, there was basically like a neon sign over him saying, "Bully me." And, that's a man that lived 31 years being bullied, 31 years being rejected and hated and despised and ridiculed by society. And you'll have, some women who, I don't know, maybe they're on their period, and they're feeling sad, and all of a sudden they're going to go around claiming that they're a reject and an inky. And there's no such thing as that, man. In my opinion, there's no such thing as a femcel. You're a femcel, come to my comment section, drop a comment, watch how many views you're going to get. Watch how many comments you're going to get. Watch how many men that are trying to court you, that are probably genuinely good dudes, are going to, you're going to get. I could go into 1,000,001 females comment sections, drop comments saying, "Hey, I'm an inky," and you best believe I ain't gonna get nothing. You best believe I'm probably gonna get clowned on. Oh, you're a manly. Oh, you're this. You know, it's just insane. It's insane, and it's actually it gets annoying. It lost its you played your little trick, and it got boring. You're not a femcel. You just have high standards. You probably just don't want to commit. You probably just want to continue being a free and independent woman, and there's nothing wrong with that. But just quit saying that you're a femcel. Just quit saying that men don't want you. Just quit saying that just because a man isn't going to give you his debit card and his PIN number, that you're an inky. You want to know what a real inky is? It's a guy that's never even held a girl's hand. It's a guy that goes years without coitus, years without a text back, years with dealing with social isolation. That's a real inky. That's a real social reject. Not just you that Chad Rodriguez, Tyrone didn't text you back. And I don't know why you would want to be this. I really don't understand why anybody would want to claim this. This is something we didn't choose. You don't know how much I wish I could be some red pill dude taking pictures with hot women, talking about it's your mindset, bro. You don't know how much I wish I could do that. But I can't. So I shan't, and I'll continue to be an inky, and I'll continue to live my life. But this whole gimmick that there are female losers, and it's ridiculous, man. Like, it's ridiculous. I just find it to be hilarious and quite disturbing, because it just shows you how out of touch people are. If you genuinely believe a woman, especially a woman who's fit, is an inky, you either are spineless and have no real code of honor, and you'll just do anything you can to try to get a 1% chance at getting her, or shoot, you have some sort of tumor growing in your brain, man, and you need to go get that checked out, because it's ridiculous to think that there's female losers and that there's female rejects and female inkies. Let's be real, most women who claim to be inkies reject men on a daily basis. They reject men on a daily basis, and they just want to be alone, but they want to claim the victimhood of being an inky. But I'll talk more about this. Peace out.